Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm Vinny Costa, editor of Street Muscle Magazine and your host of the RodCAST, the all-encompassing car show where we talk about all things automotive. Today, I'm joined by my co-host, Greg Acosta, editor of Engine Labs and the all-around tech guru. What is up, Greg?
Not much. I'm excited for today. It's a tech episode.
Definitely, man. Definitely. It's very cool. It is a tech episode, but I also want to get into some history behind the tech, right? So if don't let the tech scare you away if you're not, super into technical stuff, because we're also going to color that with a little bit of history of the company in question, which is Whipple, because today we're talking to Dustin Whipple, president of Whipple Superchargers.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like they have a cool story, and I'm not going to give it away, but they have a cool story. They've been around a long time.
But yeah, I think a lot of people are definitely, because they've been innovators since the very beginning. Kind of taking an antiquated technology and finding out, hey, how can we do this better from that inception? And it goes back a lot farther than I think people actually know. They've been a staple in the automotive aftermarket for a few decades now, but it goes back even further than that. And that history is really cool in motorsports. So I guess I don't want to get too long-winded here in the intro, but before we actually talk to Dustin, why don't we get a word from our sponsors? This episode was brought to you with the help of Performance Distributors, the company that allows you to feel the difference, not just ignite a spark. Well, what does that mean exactly? Well, their ignition systems are designed and manufactured under the most stringent of guidelines. In fact, the owner, Steve Davis, told us their systems are designed as if they're running them on their own vehicles. And that's because they are. But one of the products you may already know them for is their line of DUI distributors, the first and one of the best HEI distributors on the market. Their machine calibrated timing curves provide instant throttle response and eliminate engine damaging detonation. Now, for those of you with late model vehicles, their Sultans of Spark ignition coils are based on the DUI technology, so they too can accommodate a wider plug gap when firing out more voltage. So check out performancedistributors.com for all your ignition needs. That's performancedistributors.com. Hey, what's going on, Mr. Whipple? Dustin, how are you, man?
I'm doing excellent. Glad to be here.
Cool, man. How's Fresno? How's the company? How's everybody out there? What's going on, dude?
We're just, we're staying busy trying to get as many products as we can out. All the new development, is going on. So just staying as busy as humanly possible.
Cool, man. Well, hey, I really appreciate you making time to do this. I know you're a busy man. You guys got a lot of irons in the fire over there. And so for you to take a moment to speak with us, it means a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Glad to be here.
Cool, man. Well, hey, so typically the way that we start our episodes is we let our guests introduce themselves and talk about their role, whether it be, as a builder, a manufacturer, someone in the media, et cetera. This one's going to take a little bit of a different trajectory as I want to visit the history of Whipple first, right? And then because you came in a little bit later in that you got involved with the company later. But yeah, can we start in the beginning? Whipple is a name that's been steeped in motorsports history ever since the 70s.
Yep.
Can we start there?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was born in 76, so I missed some of the original stuff. My dad started racing right out of high school in the late 50s. Really got some notoriety in the 60s and the early 70s. Racing top fuel funny car, top fuel hydros, top fuel dragsters. Was one of the first to ever have a corporate sponsor, which was the Revell, and they won Indy, and they were on a real tear for a couple of years. And later on, he decided to have a family and stuff, so the racing became a little hard. So he took a step back, and my grandpa had a boat, top fuel hydro called Mr. Ed. He was one of the first to 200. It was really popular. So it was became a kind of a racing history or heritage, from that point on. And, I was, like I said, I was a little bit later, so I missed the original, racing bug, so to speak. And my dad went and started a trucking company at the time and became successful, and he became bored and he missed racing. So, and I would say right around 85, 86, in that range, he wanted to get back into racing, and he wanted to build a supercharger because he had always was amazed of, everybody talked about who had a good blower, but nobody had any idea. They didn't have boost gauges back then. So they didn't even, they had no idea. It was just, it's like, oh, that one was better, and just everybody arguing. And so that's when he had found what at the time was a Sprintex supercharger, and believe it or not, I found it in a Popular Mechanics magazine back in the 80s, and he called
Really?
the Australian and said, I want to be the North American distributor for that, for the OEM, for racing and everything. And that's kind of how it started at that point. At the time, we didn't really know much about superchargers other than the old Ritz blowers that we had done. But, the screw compressor at the time had a lot of, potential, but at the time it was a 1 liter supercharger. So nothing, compared to what we're doing today. So yeah, after, that's where it started. I was still in high school, and I liked cars, but I didn't really know much about them at the time. And my dad, of course, said, be a doctor, be a lawyer, or whatever, just the normal parent thing, right? But, when I turned 16, my dad gave me a supercharged Chevy truck.
Nice.
From then on, it was over. It was, once you felt that horsepower compared to, a stock, it was addicting from that point on.
You got the bug.
Got the bug, and yeah, there was, so then I went to college, but at the same time I was working every day. So that was back in 94. So I went to school during the day for a couple hours, and I tried to schedule my, classes so I'd be in the morning and night so that I could work all day. At the time, we just started getting into the boats, and I just had a strong attraction to boats and going fast, and back then there was no windshields, right? So when you're going 80 to 100, it was a thrill, right? It's like sticking your head out the window of the car. It was a different thrill, and I really got addicted to that. But we had nobody to do it, so I said, "I'll do it." I'm 18 years old, and I'll do it. Right? And I became, I assembled the superchargers. I, sold the kits to the instructions. I did, just everything, from that point on. And that's kind of how it started. So I've had every job here, from, building wiring harnesses to polishing, to grinding, to cleaning, to washing cars. I mean, I just about, everything. So that was that's where it kind of started. And from then on, now that was in 94. So, I mean, been here a long time since then. Of course, before that, I was always here doing, running errands for everybody, and, being the gopher and whatnot. So
yeah, how cool is that to just grow up around that, man? That's awesome.
Yeah, so it makes you appreciate it, I think, because I didn't just step in, I mean, I did every job. I made the harnesses, and I took all the tech calls and the complaints, and I mean, I boxed parts, I did every job here, except for welding. I've never learned to weld, so I didn't do.
Yeah, man, me either. It's that's a whole different animal. Yeah,
but exactly.
But that's cool, man. I guess it really would give you an appreciation, right? Like to see how your dad made a living and took care of your family, but also like, I mean, he had to be just, the go-to guy, like that everybody wanted to talk to and pick his brain because, he knew how to go fast.
Exactly. He had he had, crazy ideas, but at the time, I thought they were crazy, but, in the end, they really panned out. And, so we work really well together now. He's more stepped back, where he helps just run the day-to-day as far as the workers and, helping with production and stuff, where I'm running all the new projects, all the new development, the marketing, the racing.
That's awesome.
And everything. Hey, so, yeah.
What, this might be, before your time, but what do you know about, because your old man is known for being an innovator during a time when, like you mentioned, everybody was kind of just playing a guessing game, trying to make boost. But then he partnered with Sprintex first. What do you know about the design process back then? How he worked with them to innovate?
At the time, there wasn't a lot of CNCs and stuff like that. So him and another worker named Bernie, which is an old drag racer as well, they kind of went together and made a bunch of billet parts by hand to adapt them to a Chevy, to a Chevy engine, which was fuel injected, at the time. So it was, they had known, mechanical injection or carburation, and they bought a dyno, an engine dyno at the time, and did a lot of testing. And so the time it was more, a trial and error, so to speak. They didn't really know. There was a lot of limitations that we had no idea. We didn't know about intercoolers at the time. The manifolds were atrocious, because when in the 80s, when we started, it was during the power downturn, not the power upturn, right? I mean, Chevy went down to 200 horsepower and a 350 cubic inch engine, which is just insane to think that, right? And we 50% of the power to 300, right?
Dark
Look at
times.
4-cylinders make that on 87 octane now, right? So it's crazy. So it was actually, that's what kind of was a catalyst to the business, was that Chevy was so bad in the power during that time that people were used to more power, and also they had no more power. So they wanted to spend, $3,000-$4,000 to get back up to the power that they thought they were going to originally have. So it kind of just was a perfect timing at the time, and then we started carb testing back then. Our first EO was in '89, if you can, believe that. And it was, number one EO.
That's awesome. That's when I was born.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's crazy, right? We're actually carb testing since then, So
so then you get involved after school and stuff. You mentioned that boats were kind of your passion, and that's you started there. Where I don't know too much about boat racing, but where did you do that? Have you guys always been in Fresno?
Yeah. We started in Fresno. My dad was originally from Washington. Moved here because this is where a lot of the racing was at the time, and then met my mom, which was from here. Yeah, and so he, stayed here. So I've been born and raised in Fresno this whole time.
Very cool.
Yeah. So the boat racing was we traveled a lot. We sold the Superchargers, but at the same time, I had learned I gravitated to anything that I couldn't really do. So I learned from a couple of really intelligent people of how to calibrate computers, and in the Marine, it's like a 10-year gap between the automotive as far as technology. So what I learned in the cars made the Marine very easy for me to do the calibrations. And so I began working for race teams and traveling the world, tuning computers for race boats and a bunch of different classes of stuff, which was, when you're young, it's the best thing in the world is if you can travel the world, if somebody's paying for it. It was amazing, times. So.
Well, you mentioned it before, you've done pretty much every role within the company, but where do you land now, now that you're like heading up the new operations and stuff? Where is most of your time spent?
Yeah, right now, the biggest thing is definitely running the new development. That's been a massive project of we just keep building new stuff, new rotors, and trying to streamline manufacturing. That's definitely my biggest thing right now. But of course, daily it's handling fires and problems and that you got to deal with on a day-to-day basis. But that's the biggest things.
I know you can't talk too much about like super secret squirrel proprietary stuff, but what can you tell us about your manufacturing process and your design process that kind of sets you apart from some of the other manufacturers?
Yeah, we invested heavily in being self-sufficient in our core components, and that's something that very few people in our market do. A lot of people use existing rotor packs and in intercoolers and those kind of parts from other people. The Supercharger itself, we design it 100% now in-house, and so we do a lot of CFD testing, a lot of rotor testing. So we have proprietary software for each version of that. And then we make the rotors here. So we prototype the rotors, we cut the rotors, we cut the shafts, press the shafts, we heat treat, grind, all those components all here. And so we design it and build it, test it, everything here, which is definitely, deal for the aftermarket. And it's a very complex, mechanism. So it's very neat that we were able to do this. I mean, 15 years ago, if you asked me, I would have said, no way, this is just too much to do. But it became, the software has advanced greatly in the last 10, 15 years. The machinery has, come down in price, and capacity has gone, through the roof. So it really, it's just like timing. When we started in the 80s, is definitely timing that we were able to pull it off. And it's really pushed us into a direction that, 18 years ago, we thought we might be done with, development, right? The last, 8 years has just been nonstop development. So
what do you attribute that growth to in the marketplace?
I think supercharging has, definitely, there's two things. One is the economy has been good, right? That's since 2008, since the downturn, the economy, and even during the downturn, our business went up, not down. So that was it was a different phenomenon at the time. But the economy has been good, and the second is I think supercharging has become a standard. And it's not like a taboo thing anymore. people don't just say like, oh, you just wrecked your car by modifying it, so I think the old days, people were just so used to buying things that you had to cut, grind, weld, tune yourself, do all these things, right? Whereas now you can buy a package and in the weekend you're ready to go, and take like a Mustang, you go from 450 horsepower to 800 horsepower in a weekend. That's an insane number, right? So
yeah, definitely. You hit the nail on the head as far as power output. I mean, what used to be a lot yesterday is just walking in the door,
Yeah. I mean, it's like, even like the Hellcats, right? It's like, they go 700, now they're at, 800. And I mean, if you don't make 1,000 horsepower with modifications, I mean, it's just like,
exactly.
Deal, right?
Yeah. Well, what you were describing a moment ago sounds like a massive operation. Where were you guys just a few, like you mentioned, a few years ago compared to where you're at now, as in terms of size, and how long did that take?
We've been growing, between 10 to 20% per year for the last about 8 years.
Whoa.
Yeah, we've been on a big, very big.
It's been on the tear. That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And so you
that's
keep thinking it's going to level out and you're going to, get a chance to relax, but it's just not, it's just not happening. And right now we're, we got orders like it's been crazy, so.
Yeah, you guys keep cranking out bigger and better stuff, and the masses are wanting, just like you mentioned. What do you think? What role do you think the OE manufacturers have in that, right? In creating that new standard that you mentioned, where it's like, kind of supercharging became the norm all of a sudden, and it's because, or do you think it's because we started seeing it on OEM cars?
I think it's a two-way street. I think it worked both ways. I think the OE are very good at what they do, but they also tend to also, somewhat play to what the aftermarket does, right? Just like the, black wheels or any of the modifications like the Raptor lifted truck, right? They see it in the aftermarket and see, oh, this is a trend. So then they, take it and then they modernize it in their way. So I think the trend has started from the aftermarket, but what they do is, to the masses, of showing that this is our pinnacle product, is a GT500, a Hellcat, a TRX, right? That I think is the final part of it, is that when they do it, they solidify that a supercharge is a standard product, so to speak. So I think, and it takes years for that to happen, but that's basically what has happened. Is superchargers now become a common place, whether it's turbo or supercharger, it's pretty common.
Right. Well, I mean, you guys work with like the biggest names in the industry, not just on the OE side, but also with like performance shops. Like one that comes to mind is like Lethal Performance. I mean, you guys have done stuff with everyone. When was the first time you guys worked with an OE manufacturer, and what's been the latest? And what's that whole process been like in terms of your guys' growth and their wanting to work with you guys? Yeah,
we've worked with a couple of them. Always was like little special projects here and there, in the 90s, 2000s. It's definitely gotten far more common. Before, we weren't maybe fully suited to be able to produce at the levels somebody would need even for a niche vehicle. But, now we're more prepared that we have that ability, whereas before we didn't. So now we can actually custom tailor a supercharger specific to their needs. And it didn't matter if we were going to do 2,000 special cars or they're going to do 20,000, we can actually build a specific blower at an extremely low cost in comparison to some of our competitors. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So there's always a project going. Let's just say that.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I know that. Well, I don't know if you don't have to answer this, and Greg can edit it out later. But you guys have worked a lot with Dodge lately, right?
We worked on the drag pack program, which was announced beginning of this year, and that was a really nice project. It got delayed due to COVID, but that's been a really good program.
By working with them and kind of listening to their needs and developing a product for them, can we expect to see like that trickle into your normal product offerings that Whipple offers to the general public?
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Because what we built there was the Gen 5 blower, which is what we had done in the Ford, and we hadn't converted it over to anything yet. And so when we built that, we built the drag pack. The variance is that for the drag pack there wasn't really a hood clearance issue or a firewall clearance issue that we would normally have in a regular car. So we took some liberties to, make it a little bit better. But the same rotor technology, everything is coming right around the corner for all the Hemi projects.
When you talk about that twin screw design from like the early days till now, what major advancements set it apart if you were to explain it to the layman and say, this is like ancient technology by today's standards, and this is what we're doing now?
Yeah. Over the years, there was definitely some misconception on the screw compressor. It was so superior at the time to the rich superchargers and even the original centrifugals. The centrifugals obviously got significantly better, and they're very good today. But the screw compressor was ahead of its time. Between the 60s to the 90s, there was just nothing in comparison. It wasn't until the Eaton DVS came out that there was competition to the screw compressor. And so the screw compressor didn't develop in that time at the rate that the TVS did, So that was some of the issues, was that what was driving the screw compressor was the industrial market, which is a completely different type of circumstances. It's very low speed, very high pressure. And that's what had led a lot of us down the wrong path, is that it's like, yes, this is the best you can do. This is the best design. And then we had to kind of forget that, that was what we had done before. So the older stuff is that generation is like, yes, it's the best of a dry air compressor in an industrial deal, but we're not running industrial, we're running, in internal combustion engines, which is completely different. So that's, and they were good for what they were, but they had limits when you started to exceed the, areas, which, everybody wants to do, right? Like I said, the 1,000 horsepower is, standard, right? But if we sell it at 700, we know that compressor is good for that. That's not the issue. It's the 1,000, 12, 1,500 numbers, right? And so the new generation is really advanced, that it's better all around, but it's better all the way up. So it has a much higher ceiling for high RPM use, which was not a thing we had before.
Well, you mentioned earlier, like way back in the day when your old man was, crafting the first design, them making it by hand. What have modern manufacturing techniques and practices enabled you guys to do that couldn't be done back then to increase those tolerances?
Yeah, we can actually hold a rotor now to a plus or minus 25 micron, and we can do that in minutes of cutting a rotor. That was not something we could do we could do before. And then we have rotor coating that is conformal, so it actually has somewhat of a memory. So it has 50% compression. So if you're running at 20 pounds of boost versus 5 pounds of boost, we can actually coat for the we could take up more clearance, or less clearance, I guess we'd say, to make it perform better at the low boost versus the high boost. The high boost will actually self clearance itself and be able to still live and pump. And that was also a big performance gain over the years.
Definitely. What have you seen in recent years as the trend has grown? What are your customers calling and asking for? What's been your main focus and driving force because of that?
More. Everybody wants more. We always joke, around here, it's, 1,000 horsepower on 87 octane with 30 miles a gallon. It's like, with a 3-year warranty. In the end, it's just been more. So it's how can we, extract as much power as possible. Some of that has been in the intercoolers, the inlet designs. There's been a lot of gains, through not just the supercharger, but the actual kit itself. It's, you can have a great supercharger if you have a bad kit. It doesn't matter how good the supercharger is, right? So that has definitely improved over the years as well.
In what way? You guys have, dozens upon dozens of part numbers, but probably hundreds of part numbers. Yeah. Is the unit that you include in each kit, is that like modular to fit pretty much anything, or how does that process work when you guys are developing a kit for a specific vehicle?
Yeah, we definitely changed from over the years. Before, every kit was very unique and very expensive, as far as tooling and individual inventory control. Everything was much more difficult. The newer ones are more modular, where the center portion of the supercharger is built the same every time, and then the runners, the inlets, and the lids can change depending on the applications. And a lot of times the lid and intercooler fits almost every application. So then you're just talking about, basically inlets and runners. So there's that allows us to develop a lot faster. The blower is very compatible, with different V8 platforms out there, that even ones we don't know about maybe today. It'll still be able to adapt. It's low profile, it's inverted. You can do left or right, top inlets. There's quite a few different deals. So by being the more modular, it allows us to build the kits at a much faster rate, and as well as cheaper tooling, which of course is always better. Makes sense.
With this kind of shift in the industry for these manufacturers to start going green or make more fuel efficient vehicles with smaller displacement engines. Obviously you guys are locked in with the aftermarket that exists right now. Like that customer base is there. People who are buying big V8s that want to supercharge them, they're there, they're not going anywhere. But as these new cars come out, is that something that you guys have designs on catering to, like, even those smaller displacement engines?
Yeah, there's no question. We have quite a few different sizes superchargers coming out now to be able to work with a broader range of applications. We're working with a lot of hybrid technology. There's some other natural gas projects. There's definitely some other interesting platforms and stuff that the superchargers will still work on. Similar concept, but just a little different. So I think there'll be a blend between the hybrids and the electrification for quite some time. I don't think electrification is here 100% yet today. I don't think we're prepared for that quite yet. But we also have branched out into the EcoBoost market for the Fords. We have intercoolers. And we kind of cater to the fact that we're somewhat airflow experts, right? We've got the CFD programs, we got the engineers, we got the team to be able to develop air kits, intercooler kits, and obviously carb compatibility. So that's something that we've really been doing the last few years, and we're expanding that product line as well. And those are really nice kits, low dollar, high horsepower upgrade kits, emissions legal.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, that's something else I should ask you about. Being a California-based company, has that been a primary concern since like smog laws came around for Whipple, or is that something that you guys contend with? How does that work?
No question. Yeah, it's definitely a talking point. We think it's very important. We're in California. We try to set an example. Like I said, we were one of the very first, either the first or the second to ever get an EO on the supercharging market back in '89. And we've got 66 exemption orders right now with CARB. We have another 6 pending right now. And so we got a lot, going on. We try to always make sure that it's legal first in California. It's a little bit of a disadvantage to our competitors that are not in California that, don't abide by any of the rules, because, when you go to quarter mile times, it's impossible to make a Mustang or a Challenger or anything like that go through the quarter mile not in cap protection, right? But there's a lot of people that turn cap protection off, right? And long term it's damaging, but the people looking on a form or something go like, wow, he's 5 miles an hour faster, he makes more power. It's like, no, he's just not abiding by the law, right? It's and so that's always a problem, because we try to do everything we can to be legal. CARB, and they give us exemption orders. To me, it's a great thing that they are able to do that, because they could just say you can't do it, right? But they give us the opportunity to do it. So I feel that it's we should always adhere to those rules, because they've given us a platform to do it legally, and that's what we try to do.
No, I think that's a fantastic point. You guys are stewards for the hot rodding culture, with regards to just getting through legislation and those laws legally, right? So I think that's fantastic. And I've always thought, like, these manufacturers who make parts that are 49 state legal, California is a huge piece of that pie that they're basically ignoring.
It's a huge market, and there is an investment, and there's a lot of risk involved in it, but I do feel that it's the right way. And of course we're in California, so it's I feel that we're held to maybe a different standard than some of the other companies potentially, but California is a huge market. Florida, Texas, those few, you can't ignore California. It's bad business to ignore California.
One of the long-term projects that we've had on Street Muscle has been the Daily Camaro. Greg knows this project well.
Yeah.
It's a high mileage 5th gen, and the whole idea behind it was to have a California legal daily that was still hot rodding and fun. And so to have a manufacturer like you to provide products for someone who wants to do that, I think is fantastic, man. That's awesome.
Yep,
but Dustin, as we kind of wrap up here, quick question: what's on the horizon for Whipple? I know you guys have teased some stuff on your social media channels. I know I have messages in my inbox like, "Hey, when can I find out more about X, Y, and Z?" So where can people check stuff out, and when can we hear more about what's coming next?
We do most on our Facebook and Instagram. We definitely giving out teasers. We just released some teasers on the new Hellcat version, the 3-liter, and that's coming. The Hemi 5764 is right around the corner to that. The 3.8 Hellcat is around the corner. It's close.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah. So we spent 2020 developing a lot of product, and so it's in 2021. I think there's about 13 new kits with the Gen 5. We also have a Gen 6, coming pretty soon that we're doing with new rotor technology. So we're continuing to push the boundaries. So 21 is going to be an interesting year with the amount of product that we got coming out. It's excessive. We basically have revamped the entire lineup. It doesn't matter if it's LS, LT, everything is going basically Gen 5 in the future or greater. So
more, bigger, badder, better from Whipple. I love it, dude.
Yeah, that's right.
One more time, can you give us your guys' website? And then we have a bonus tech question at the end from Greg, our tech guru.
Yep. Yeah. You can find us at Facebook or our website, which is www.whipplesuperchargers.com, or you can email us at sales@whipplesuperchargers.com.
Fantastic. Greg, you ready, man?
Yep. It's kind of a leading question. It's something that every time I bring up, I either melt someone's brain or they don't believe me, like flat. Yeah. The difference between a roots and a twin screw and the method of compression. Would you care to expand on that from the horse's mouth?
Yeah. The biggest thing is the internal compression. The screw compressor internally inside the housing compresses it prior to exhausting out of the housing, where a roots only compresses internally in the manifold, cylinder heads, in the valve area. And that's old school roots to screw compressor. The TVS is actually more of a hybrid in between that, in that it does have a slight amount of internal compression, which is one of the advantages why it's does better than the old roots. And so it gets a little bit of internal compression, and then the rest is done in the manifold. There's also another part is that the screw compressor generally is an actual type of compressor, which means the air is coming from one end and exiting the other end. And the roots, the old school roots, is a radial style where the air is always going in and out, on top to bottom or inverted, either way. And those are the biggest points between the two.
Thank you, because I will tell people, and they honestly think that twin screws just have a more efficient screw design, and and don't quite understand that the roots slings it out and compresses it through like inertia versus actually squeezing it.
Yeah. So one of the biggest things is that the roots has high leakage because it doesn't have any internal compression. So the pressure equalizes in the supercharger and below. Therefore, the air has to go through multiple times, which at that point you get lower volumetric efficiency and lower adiabatic. And so you're going to heat the air up every time you have to recirculate it. So you want to have as least amount of internal leakage as possible. So that's what some of the newer technology is to be able to try to seal the rotor and the airflow up as much as possible. So helix angle, clearances, everything are all very important to that equation.
Well, I think 25 micron tolerances. I think that kind of helps.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
It's a big time. Yeah, no question.
No kidding, man.
You don't need Teflon when you have 25 micron clearance. Yeah.
Dude, fantastic. You guys heard it here from the horse's mouth, as Greg put it. I'm not calling you a horse, Dustin. I'm just saying. It's just an expression. But hey, man, thank you so much for coming on the show, shedding light on the history of the company, what you guys are working on right now, some of your design and manufacturing processes, and of course, answering that bonus tech question that Greg had for you.
Absolutely. No, I really appreciate you having me, and yeah, looking forward to seeing all the responses from this and all the new products. So yeah, keep up what you're doing.
Definitely, man. We'll keep an eye out for all those new products, and everybody check out whipplesuperchargers.com.
All right, thank you.
So there you have it, Greg. What a fantastic interview with Dustin Whipple, dude. You asked some really fantastic questions there at the end that I didn't think, because I'm not the tech guru, bro.
Well, it's always fun to talk to Dustin. I mean, just spoiler alert, this is not the first time Dustin and I have talked. You know what I mean? So
Definitely.
Yeah, it's always cool, especially, when we're doing tech stuff. And because we did that whole deal with Ivan's Coyote engine. We actually did the Gen 3 and the Gen 5 on that, which was, there's no denying what a leap forward the Gen 5 is.
Yeah, you guys picked up like 200 horsepower over what you guys were making before, right?
The same boost. Yeah. I think it was actually half a pound less on both.
If you guys are wondering what we're talking about, that is our audience, go back a few episodes and check out the episode with Ivan Korda. He's one of our sales reps at Power Automedia, but he actually is also a wicked motivated project car builder, and he has this really cool Mustang that he put a couple Whipples on.
Actually, I don't believe he has the car anymore. I think the trucks surpass it. Yeah.
Well, so that's his thing. He's always working on different projects. Right now, he's building a bad Pro Touring F100. So go check out that episode, because he goes into a deep detail, and he's made a lot of progress since then. Is that up on the YouTube channel right now, Greg? Do you know if that episode is up yet?
That episode is not up yet. It will be soon, but it's on Facebook.
Okay, go check it out on the Street Muscle Magazine Facebook page.
Yeah, and you can also read the article series on both Engine Labs and Street Muscle. It's really cool. Just to give you a quick premise, a non-Whipple Supercharger was on the car, and there was a bit of a incident, I guess would be a good way to say it. There were only two parts that were salvageable from the engine, but we rebuilt it and started off with the Gen 3 Whipple. And then right as we were doing that, the Gen 5 came out. So we got to test it, right? We have
only logical to upgrade, dude.
Well, especially when we can do it back to back. And these were literally like almost back to back. I mean, obviously there was some time between the dyno runs, but it wasn't much. But yeah, same boost pressures, same pulley sizes. Interestingly enough, even at both boost pressures, the same pulleys were only, half a pound apart. It's pretty impressive.
Insane.
Yeah. But horsepower numbers were
substantially
different.
Yeah.
But we did manage to run out of fuel system the first time. That was kind of fun. I know that sounds weird. How is it fun to run out of fuel system? Because it means you're making all of the power. You're literally making all of the power. So,
dude, that's nuts. Well, yeah, so everybody at home, if you want to find out more about that project series, go check out streetmusclemag.com and enginelabs.com. Check out our Facebook page. You can find out all about it there. And but before, or as we wrap up this episode, Greg, and say goodbye to everybody, I do want to take a quick moment and talk about one of our sponsors, and that's ARP Fasteners, right? The name that everybody knows. Everybody knows ARP Fasteners make some of the greatest nuts and bolts there are. But I think a common question that we get is, what makes them superior? And one of those things is their manufacturing process, and the fact that they use rolled threads instead of cut threads on their fasteners. And since you are our resident tech guru, I wanted to ask you to elaborate on that for our audience a little bit and talk about why one technology is superior to the other.
All right. Well, a cut fastener is exactly what it sounds like. You remove material to make the thread, right? You can do it on a lathe. Anybody that's ever worked on a lathe or took high school shop class, metal shop, understands threading. You literally just cut out the threads. There's nothing wrong with that. That's been the way we've done it ever since we've developed screws. But what ARP does is they form the threads. They use rollers with the right, they're basically dies. So Matt, like here, I got 2 pins. So they roll like this, and I'm gonna do top and bottom. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah. And they roll like this, and the fastener goes in the middle, and it literally presses the threads into the bolt, the bolt itself, the rod that goes in there.
Right.
So there's no material removed.
Makes sense. So they start with that same bar stock, but instead of cutting those threads with a die that removes that material, they're using kind of like these pressure shaped dowels and pressing them, right?
Yeah. So it's almost like the reason why forged is better than just standard, cast.
Interesting.
It physically puts the material where they want it.
Exactly. So if you were to remove material, you're essentially weakening the original material. But if you're forming the material, all that same material is still there, so it retains more strength.
Yeah. And I hate to use the word weakening because, like I said, that every bolt ever, with the exception, you cut threads. That's just what you do. Mm-hmm. But this is a stronger version of that.
Interesting.
It's really a cool process. And
do you know if that aids at all in the way the fasteners fit together, like with the nut and the bolt? Does the rolled versus cut?
Really good question, because when it comes to fasteners, they have multiple grades of fit, right? There's a class 1, 2, 3. Class 3 they actually have specifications for. I mean, it's all calculated. We could dive into fastener stuff and threading stuff. It's insane. But basically they have classes of fit. And so like a class 1 is like super sloppy. A class 3 would be so tight that it kind of, you can feel it.
Okay.
I've never actually asked the question. I'm now going to have to with ARP.
We will revisit this.
Yes. I want to know what, number 1, can they adjust the class fit with formed threads? And number 2, what class do they build their stuff to? Does it even come into play when you're talking about something like, engine components?
And we've just brainstormed a fantastic tech piece for you guys. This is how we do it.
I mean, honestly, Greg, in my head, I'm gonna guess it's all class 2. That's my guess. I'm maybe wrong, but that's my guess. Everything is going to be at a class 2, but we'll see.
All right. In a future episode, we're going to revisit this same subject and we'll have an answer for you guys. Right now, Greg, where can people go check out ARP fasteners?
ARP-bolts.com.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, hey, as we wrap up this episode, I want to say thank you for tuning in to another fantastic episode of the RodCAST. Check out streetmusclemag.com, check out enginelabs.com, check out powerautomedia.com. For whatever automotive affliction that you have, we have a magazine for it. Go over there and check it out. Of course, follow us on Facebook. Leave us a like, a comment, a subscription. Hit that notification bell, and we'll see you next week. Thank you, guys. Peace.